There are gods in this universe, and every single one of them wants humanity dead. In the 41st millennium, mankind clings to survival through faith, fire, and the corpse of a god seated upon a golden throne. But what happens when a soldier from another reality, a man who's already died for humanity once, falls into this nightmare? Today, we're answering the question that's haunted crossover fans for years. What if Master Chief entered Warhammer 40K? This isn't some power-scaling debate. This is the story of what happens when the UNSC's greatest weapon collides with the Imperium's darkest hour. If you're here for tales of warriors defying impossible odds across the multiverse, then do yourself a favor. Smash that subscribe button and join the faithful. The Emperor protects those who support the channel, and trust me, you'll want to see where this goes. Now let's begin where all great tragedies start, with a mission that should have been routine. The UNSC Infinity hung in the void like a dagger pointed at the heart of mystery. Around her, a fleet of cruisers and destroyers maintained defensive positions while teams of scientists worked inside the cavernous holds, studying an artifact that had no right to exist. The Forerunner installation, designated Site-77, defied every known principle of slipspace mechanics. It wasn't a portal. It wasn't a weapon. According to the readings, it was something worse. A tear in the fabric of reality itself, held closed by technology older than human civilization. Master Chief Spartan 117 stood in the artifact chamber, Mjolnir armor reflecting the pale blue light emanating from the structure. 40 feet tall and humming with barely contained energy, the obelisk twisted at angles that hurt to look at directly. Symbols flickered across its surface, not scrolling, but phasing, existing in multiple states simultaneously. "John, I don't like this," Cortana said, her avatar materializing on his HUD. The AI's face showed genuine concern, rare for someone who'd faced down the flood and lived to process the memory. "These readings aren't just anomalous. They're wrong. The math doesn't work in three-dimensional space." "What's it doing?" Chief's voice remained calm, professional. After 30 years of combat, very little rattled him anymore. "Trying to go home?" Cortana paused, processing terabytes of data in microseconds. "This isn't Forerunner tech designed for our universe, John. It's from somewhere else. Somewhere that operates on different physical laws. And it's been trying to tear open a passage back for the last 100,000 years. Around them, UNSC technicians worked with careful precision, installing monitoring equipment and running diagnostics. Chief recognized the team lead, Dr. Catherine Halsey, the woman who'd created the Spartan program. She stood at a control console, her face illuminated by holographic displays showing equations that seemed to eat themselves. "Doctor," Chief said, moving to her position, "Cortana says this thing's unstable." Halsey didn't look up. "Cortana's correct. It's also the most significant discovery since we found the first Halo ring. The slipspace principles alone could revolutionize." The obelisk screamed, not with sound, with reality. Chief's shields flared as space itself rippled outward from the artifact. Technicians stumbled, some falling to their knees as their inner ears registered impossible motion. Alarms shrieked across the Infinity's systems. "It's activating!" Cortana's voice cracked with digital static. "John, it's not waiting anymore. Something's pulling on it from the other side." The symbols on the obelisk blazed white-hot. The air began to fold, reality creasing like paper in an invisible fist. Chief could see through the artifact now, could see the chamber behind it. Except the chamber was also in front of it, and above it, and somehow bleeding into spaces that shouldn't exist. "All personnel, evacuate now!" Halsey's voice cut through the chaos. "Initiate emergency slipspace protocols." Too late. The obelisk opened. Chief had seen slipspace transitions before. The gentle blue glow as a ship entered the alternate dimension that allowed faster-than-light travel. This was nothing like that. This was reality being torn open with jagged claws, exposing something underneath that human eyes weren't meant to perceive. Colors that had no names spilled into the chamber. Chief's visor polarized automatically, but it couldn't filter out the wrongness. Behind the tear, something vast moved with terrible purpose. Not machinery, not biology, something that existed in the space between thought and matter. "John!" Cortana's scream echoed inside his helmet. The artifact's creating a cascade. It's pulling everything in a half-mile radius into... The universe inverted. Chief felt his atoms separate, felt his consciousness stretch across dimensions that his brain couldn't process. The Mjolnir armor's systems went haywire, every sensor screaming contradictory data. He was falling. He was stationary. He was being pulled apart. He was being compressed into a single point. Through the maelstrom, he heard Cortana. "Shh, stay with me." And then the screaming started. Not from his crew, not from anyone human. From outside, Chief tumbled through a space that wasn't space, surrounded by impossible geometries and colors that hurt his mind to perceive. The temperature readings in his HUD cycled through every value from absolute zero to the heart of a sun in nanoseconds. His shields failed, reformed, failed again. Something touched his armor. Not physical contact, spiritual, like claws made of malice and hunger raking across his soul. His training kicked in. Spartans don't panic, Spartans don't break. But this wasn't an enemy he could shoot or a problem he could solve with tactics. This was hell. And hell had noticed him. Shapes coalesced in the chaos. Massive, predatory, things with too many eyes and not enough humanity, circling him like sharks sensing blood. Chief's hand found his assault rifle by pure muscle memory, but when he pulled the trigger, the muzzle flash seemed to curve backward, the bullets dissolving into streams of screaming light. "Cortana!" he roared into the void. Static, then, impossibly, "I'm still here, John. We're not in slip space. This is something else. Something alive." The shapes closed in, and then gravity reasserted itself with catastrophic force. Chief slammed into solid ground hard enough to crack stone, his shields absorbing an impact that would have liquefied an unarmored human. He rolled, combat instincts overriding the disorientation, coming up with his rifle raised. The sky above him was wrong, purple, red, colors that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. Storm clouds that screamed with human voices, and in the distance, massive structures of impossible architecture, as if someone had built cities out of nightmares and madness. "John," Cortana's voice was weak, distorted. "I'm reading. I don't know what I'm reading, but we're not in our universe anymore." Chief's motion tracker lit up. 30 contacts, 60-100, all moving toward his position. All hungry, Chief's sensors painted a picture that defied logic. The atmosphere registered as breathable 1 second, toxic the next, then somehow both simultaneously. Gravity fluctuated in waves, making his HUD's orientation markers spin uselessly. The ground beneath his boots looked like stone, but felt like it was breathing. This wasn't a planet. This was something pretending to be one. "Cortana, I need options." Chief cycled through his weapons. MA-5D assault rifle, M6 Magnum, 2 plasma grenades. Standard loadout for what should have been a research mission. Nothing close to adequate for whatever this was. "Working on it." The AI's voice stabilized slightly, her processing power adapting to the environmental chaos. "John, I'm detecting massive reality distortions. The physical laws here are negotiable. Matter and energy are bleeding into each other, and those contacts closing on your position." She paused. "They're not reading as biological or mechanical. They're reading as conceptual." "English, Cortana. They're made of ideas given form, emotions weaponized. This isn't a dimension, It's a nightmare that learned how to think. The first creature emerged from the purple haze 50 meters out. Chief had fought Covenant elites, brutes, and Promethean knights. He'd stared down grave mines and lived. But this thing triggered something primal in his augmented brain, an instinct that screamed wrong at the genetic level. It stood 8 feet tall on backward-jointed legs, its flesh the color of arterial blood. Muscles rippled under skin that wept crimson mist. The head was canine but twisted, stretched into something that grinned with too many teeth. In its clawed hands, it carried a blade that looked forged from rage itself, the metal pulsing with each of the creature's heartbeats. And it wasn't alone. Dozens more materialized from the roiling atmosphere, some smaller, moving on all fours like hounds bred in hell's kennels, others towering and armored in brass plate that screamed when it moved. They circled Chief with predatory intelligence, eyes that burned with firelight locked onto him. One of the hounds lunged. Chief's rifle barked 3 times. Controlled bursts, center mass, textbook execution. The rounds struck true, punching through the creature's chest. It staggered, howled, and kept coming. "Ballistics ineffective!" Cortana shouted. "Try plasma!" Chief holstered the rifle mid-dodge, the hound's claws raking across his shields and dropping them to 60%. His hand found a plasma grenade, primed it, and slapped it onto the creature's flank in one fluid motion. The grenade detonated with superheated fury. The hound exploded in a shower of, not blood, something worse. Liquid that screamed as it evaporated, leaving scorch marks that writhed like living things. The remaining creatures paused, sniffing the air where their packmate had died. Then they smiled. "They're enjoying this," Cortana said, disbelief coloring her tone. "John, these things live for violence. You just made them happy." The larger creatures charged as one. Chief moved with Spartan precision, decades of combat experience compressed into split-second decisions. He couldn't win this fight through strength, not against numbers like this. So he did what Spartans did best. He made the terrain work for him. A collapsed pillar of that impossible architecture lay 30 meters to his left, creating a natural choke point. Chief sprinted, his armor's shields recharging as he ran. Behind him, the creatures bounded forward with inhuman speed, their howls shaking the air itself. He reached the pillar, spun, and opened fire with the assault rifle on full automatic. Rounds tore into the leading creature's legs, not to kill, but to trip. It crashed forward into its companions, creating a momentary tangle of limbs and rage. Chief used the seconds wisely. His last plasma grenade flew in a perfect arc, landing in the center of the pack. The detonation sent bodies flying, their supernatural flesh no match for Covenant weapons technology. But more were coming. Always more. "Cortana, I need an exit vector. There's a structure 700 meters northwest. It's the only thing my sensors can get a solid reading on. Everything else here is fluid. I think it's more stable reality, relatively speaking." "Define relatively." "It's only screaming at me in 2 languages instead of 5. A massive creature, easily 10 feet tall and broad as a warthog, smashed through the smaller ones, sending them tumbling. Its armor was archaic plate decorated with skulls, and it wielded an axe that looked forged from crystallized hatred. When it roared, Chief's audio filters nearly blew, trying to process the sound. The champion pointed its axe at Chief, not attacking, recognizing. "A mortal." The voice was grinding metal and burning flesh. "A mortal stands in the realm of blood, untouched, uncorrupted. Impossible." Chief didn't waste time on conversation. His rifle spoke instead, rounds hammering into the creature's chest plate. They ricocheted off, barely scratching the brass. The champion laughed. "Yes, fight, bleed, die for the glory of—" It stopped mid-sentence. The smaller creatures stopped too, their heads tilting in unison like dogs hearing a whistle only they could perceive. The champion's burning eyes narrowed, focusing on Chief with sudden, terrifying intensity. "You..." It stepped forward, axe lowering slightly. "You carry no mark, no taint. The warp flows around you like water around stone. What are you?" Chief's shields had recharged to 90%. His rifle had half a magazine left. He calculated firing angles, retreat routes, survival odds. All of them poor. "What are you?" the champion repeated. And now there was something other than bloodlust in its voice. Curiosity, confusion, almost fear. The ground beneath Chief's boots shuddered. Not an earthquake, something worse. Reality itself was rejecting his presence, like a body fighting an infection. The purple sky rippled, storm clouds pulling away from the space directly above him. The stone stopped breathing, the colors stopped screaming. Around Chief, a sphere of normal was forming, 10 meters in diameter, expanding slowly. The creatures recoiled, hissing, their forms flickering at the edges of this bubble of sanity. "John," Cortana whispered, wonder and horror mixing in her voice. "You're not supposed to be here. Not metaphorically, physically. Your presence is destabilizing this entire region. You're a foreign object, and this dimension's immune system is activating." The champion snarled, raising its axe. "The gods themselves reject you, mortal. You will be claimed. You will be..." The ground opened beneath Chief's feet. Not a pit, a rift, reality tearing itself apart to expel the invader. Chief fell. Again, but this time, as the nightmare realm vanished above him, he caught a glimpse of something through the dimensional barrier. Something golden. Something that felt like home. "Cortana, what is that?" "Reading. John, I think it's..." "Oh no." "Oh no." "What?" "We just got noticed by something much, much worse than those monsters." The rift snapped shut above him, and Master Chief fell toward the throne world of mankind. The transition from the warp to real space felt like being born in reverse, compressed, squeezed through a dimensional membrane that fought his existence every centimeter. Chief's armor systems rebooted 3 times in as many seconds, his HUD flickering through error messages in languages that shouldn't exist. Then gravity took hold with authority. He hit atmosphere at terminal velocity, his shields flaring white-hot as friction turned air into plasma. Cortana was screaming coordinates, trying to calculate impact trajectory, but the numbers kept changing. Whatever planet this was, it didn't follow standard orbital mechanics. "Brace for impact!" Cortana shouted. 3 seconds! Chief locked his armor's joints, compressed his body into the crash position every Spartan learned in training. Through the flames engulfing his shields, he caught glimpses of what lay below. Cities. Not the sprawling metropolises of Earth, but something older, vaster, Gothic spires that clawed at the sky like accusing fingers, cathedrals large enough to house starships, and everywhere the glint of gold. Too much gold, as if someone had decided that subtlety was heresy. 2 seconds. His shields failed completely, burned away by re-entry forces they were never designed to handle. The Mjolnir armor's outer layer began to glow cherry red. 1 second. He crashed through a domed roof constructed from crystalline material. The impact spiderwebbing cracks across its surface before it shattered entirely. Then through 3 more levels of architecture, stone, metal, something that felt organic, before finally slamming into a floor made of marble veined with precious metals. The impact crater was 6 feet deep. Chief lay motionless for 3 full seconds, running diagnostics, shields offline, armor integrity at 47%, 3 cracked ribs, dislocated shoulder, minor concussion. His augmented healing was already addressing the damage, bones knitting at accelerated rates. Cortana, status. Surprisingly intact, the AI replied, her voice shaky. That shouldn't have been survivable. The armor took damage that should have liquefied you. But John, wherever we are, we need to move. Now, I'm reading. The sound of synchronized footsteps cut her off. Heavy, purposeful. Multiple contacts converging on his position with military precision. Chief forced himself up, ignoring the protest from his ribs. His rifle had been lost in the fall, but his magnum was still mag-locked to his thigh. He drew it, cycling around into the chamber out of pure habit. The chamber he'd crashed into was massive, easily 200 feet across, the ceiling lost in shadows far above. Braziers burned with flames that gave off golden light, but no heat. Statuary lined the walls depicting armored warriors frozen in eternal vigilance. And everywhere, that symbol, a two-headed eagle, wings spread, screaming defiance at the universe. "John, I'm translating the inscriptions," Cortana said rapidly. This is bad. We're inside something called the Imperial Palace, on a planet called Terra. And according to everything I'm reading, this is the single most sacred location in an empire that spans 1,000,000 worlds. Terra. Chief's tactical mind processed the word. Latin for Earth? Not your Earth, their Earth. And we just crashed into their holiest site like a meteor made of bad decisions. The footsteps stopped. 10 figures emerged from the shadows, moving with a grace that seemed impossible for their size. Each stood at least 8 feet tall, clad in armor that made Chief's Mjolnir look like parade dress. Gold, red, perfectly crafted plates that caught the brazier light and seemed to glow from within. They carried weapons that were clearly ceremonial but radiated lethality. Spears with power fields crackling along their blades, guardian spears that hummed with barely restrained energy. But it was their faces that made Chief hesitate. Perfect. Inhumanly so. Faces sculpted by someone who understood human beauty and then enhanced it beyond mortal possibility. Eyes that burned with intelligence and purpose. These weren't soldiers. They were something more. Something that made even a Spartan feel inadequate. The center figure stepped forward, his armor more ornate than the others, a crimson plume rising from his helm. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Identify yourself, intruder." Not English. Not any language Chief recognized, but somehow he understood it perfectly. "You stand in the Sanctum Imperialis. Explain your presence before we grant you the Emperor's mercy." Chief kept his magnum lowered but ready. "Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, United Nations Space Command. I'm not here by choice." The warriors exchanged glances. The leader's eyes narrowed. "UNSC, United Nations." He tested the words like they were foreign objects. "Cortana," he said suddenly, and Chief's blood went cold. "You carry an abominable intelligence. By the Lex Imperialis, you are thrice condemned for bearing forbidden technology, for violating the palace sanctum, and for—" He stopped abruptly, his head tilting. The other warriors stiffened as one, their weapons coming up to guard positions. But they weren't aiming at Chief. They were reacting to something else. "John," Cortana whispered, genuine fear in her voice. "Something's happening. I'm detecting a psychic event of magnitude doesn't even begin to describe it. It's like standing next to a star made of conscious thought." The air pressure changed, not gradually, instantly. Chief's ears popped, his armor's sensors screaming warnings about exotic energy readings that maxed out every scale. The golden flames in the braziers flared white. The warriors dropped to one knee as one, their heads bowing. The leader's voice, previously commanding, became reverent. "The Emperor speaks." A sound filled the chamber, not sound, presence. Like reality itself was being used as a speaker system for something vast and terrible and glorious. Chief felt it in his bones, in his augmented organs, in the titanium infrastructure fused to his skeleton. Words formed, not in air, in thought. "This warrior is not of our making." The voice was 1,000 voices, 1,000,000, all speaking in perfect unison. It bypassed Chief's ears entirely, resonating directly in his consciousness. Even Cortana, digital and synthetic, recoiled from the sheer presence of it. But his soul burns with purpose. The lead warrior, Chief, was beginning to suspect he was dealing with something far beyond standard infantry, raised his head slightly. Master of mankind, this intruder carries. I see what he carries. I see what he is. I see what he may become. A pause. In that silence, Chief felt something impossible. He felt examined, not his body, not his armor, his soul itself, laid bare before an intelligence that had been old when humanity first looked at the stars. Bring him to me! The presence withdrew, leaving a void in its wake. The warriors rose smoothly, their weapons lowering, but not sheathing. The leader approached Chief, his perfect face unreadable. You have been granted an audience with the Emperor of Mankind. You will come willingly, or you will come bound. The choice is yours, John 1:17. Chief looked at the 10 warriors, calculated his odds of fighting through them, and arrived at a number very close to 0. Besides, Cortana was right. They needed information. They needed to understand where and when they were. And whoever this Emperor was, he'd just saved Chief's life. Chief lowered his magnum completely, mag locking it to his thigh. I'll come willingly. They moved through corridors that defied Chief's sense of scale. Hallways wide enough to march tanks through, ceilings so high they created their own weather patterns. Every surface was adorned with art that celebrated warfare. Frescoes depicting battles across alien worlds, statues of warriors locked in eternal combat, tapestries showing humanity's triumphs woven in thread that seemed to shimmer with captured starlight. The 10 golden warriors, Custodes, Cortana had identified them after cracking into local data streams, formed a perfect escort formation around Chief. Not threatening, but absolutely unyielding. He'd served with enough elite units to recognize professionals when he saw them, and these warriors moved with a precision that put even ODSTs to shame. John, I'm pulling data from their systems, Cortana whispered, her voice tight with controlled panic. The encryption is extensive, but I'm getting through. And what I'm finding is terrifying. Summary. This isn't our universe. It's not even close. This is humanity 10,000 years after their own dark age of technology. They control 1 million worlds. They're locked in constant warfare with alien races, corrupt humans, and literal demons from another dimension. And the Emperor, the one who just spoke to you, has been sitting on a life support throne for the last 10 millennia, barely alive, holding their entire civilization together through sheer psychic will. Chief processed this while watching the Custodes leader ahead. The warrior moved with economy of motion that spoke of centuries of combat experience. Centuries. Cortana's biometric scans suggested these warriors were functionally immortal. And us? We shouldn't be here. The warp, that nightmare dimension we fell through, it's anathema to their technology. They have religious prohibitions against artificial intelligence because of some ancient war. By their laws, I am an abomination, and you're a heretic for carrying me. Cortana paused. But the Emperor intervened. He protected you. Question is, why? They emerged into a space that made the previous corridors look claustrophobic. The throne room. Chief had stood in the bridge of the infinity, had walked through forerunner installations that could dismantle planets. None of it compared to this. The chamber was a cathedral to human ambition. Vaulted ceilings disappeared into shadows miles above. Pillars carved from single pieces of marble supported architecture that seemed to exist purely to demonstrate that humanity could build the impossible and call it merely adequate. Golden light emanated from sources Chief couldn't identify, bathing everything in radiance that felt almost holy. And at the far end, raised on a dais that required 50 steps to reach, sat the golden throne. Even from this distance, Chief could feel it, not with his eyes, with something deeper, a presence that pressed against his consciousness like gravity pressing against his body. Power barely contained, channeled through mechanisms that blurred the line between technology and sorcery. The Custodes stopped at the base of the steps. Their leader turned to Chief. "You will ascend alone. The Emperor has decreed it." His tone suggested this was unprecedented. "Your weapon will remain here." Chief hesitated. A Spartan without a weapon was still dangerous, but old instincts died hard. He unclasped his magnum, handed it to the nearest custodian. The warrior took it with the care one might give a religious relic, examining the archaic ballistic design with professional interest. "John," Cortana said quietly, "I don't think I should be active for this. Whatever's up there, it might react badly to my presence. I'm going into standby mode. If you need me, just say my name." "Understood." Her avatar flickered out. Chief climbed. Each step was carved from stone that predated recorded history, worn smooth by countless pilgrims who'd made this journey before him. As he ascended, the pressure increased. Not physical pressure, psychic, like walking into a hurricane made of pure will. At the 30th step, Chief's vision blurred. He saw flashes of other places, other times, battlefields across galaxies, humanity fighting for survival against horrors that made the Covenant look merciful, children screaming in the dark, heroes standing against impossible odds, the birth and death of empires compressed into heartbeats. He pushed through, Spartan conditioning overriding the sensory overload. 40th step. His augmented physiology was struggling now, his heart rate elevated despite decades of emotional control. Whatever sat on that throne wasn't human, not anymore. It was something humanity had become when pushed to the absolute limit of evolution and necessity. 50th step. Chief stood before the golden throne. The mechanism itself was massive, a fusion of technology and arcane science that Chief's tactical brain couldn't begin to parse. Cables thick as tree trunks fed into structures that hummed with barely contained power. Machinery that looked older than civilizations worked in perfect synchronization, channeling energies that made his radiation counterspike into red warnings. And seated within it, more corpse than man, was the Emperor. Desiccated flesh, bones visible through skin like ancient parchment, a body that should have been dead 10 times over, kept animate through technology and willpower that refused to acknowledge mortality. Yet the eyes, burned with intelligence that made Chief feel like an insect being examined under a microscope. The Emperor didn't speak aloud. Didn't need to. Chief felt the psychic scan begin. It was invasive in ways that made Halsey's augmentation surgeries seem gentle. The Emperor's consciousness touched every part of Chief's being. His Spartan augmentations, the Forerunner artifact's residual energy in his cells, Cortana's presence in his neural lace, the memories of every battle he'd fought, every soldier he'd watched die, every choice he'd made in humanity's name. Chief stood rigid, fighting the instinct to resist. This wasn't an attack, it was an evaluation. After what felt like hours but was probably seconds, the Emperor's presence withdrew slightly. In another age, John 117, you could have been a Primarch. The words carried weight beyond meaning. Chief understood without being told. Primarchs were the Emperor's greatest creations. 20 demigods forged to conquer the galaxy, and he was being compared to them. You carry no taint of chaos. Your conditioning resists corruption that would break even my Custodes. The artifact that brought you here has altered you in ways you do not yet comprehend. Chief found his voice. I serve humanity. Yours or mine, doesn't matter. Something that might have been approval flickered across the Emperor's ravaged features. Spoken like a true son of Terra, but your service here will be tested beyond anything your wars prepared you for. The powers of chaos have sensed your arrival. They fear what you represent. Chief's tactical mind immediately shifted gears. Those creatures in the warp, they'll come for me. They are already coming. The Emperor's consciousness pressed outward, and suddenly Chief could see beyond the throne room. His perception expanded across the palace, across Terra itself, up into orbit where massive space stations bristled with weapons that could crack continents, and beyond that, into the warp itself. The Imperium churned with fury. Beings of impossible scale moved through that dimensional nightmare, their attention focused on a single point, on Terra, on the palace, on him. You are an anomaly they cannot corrupt, a soul that defies their influence. In their realm of infinite corruption, you are poison, and they will spend legions to claim or destroy you. How long do we have? Minutes. They are tearing open a breach in real space even now. My Custodes will stand with you. So too will the Sisters of Silence. You will need both. The Emperor's withered hand moved fractionally, and Chief felt something change in his armor. The Mjolnir's systems, damaged from re-entry and the warp exposure, suddenly stabilized. More than that, they enhanced. The energy shields hummed at capacity he'd never seen before. His HUD cleared, showing tactical overlays that integrated seamlessly with data streams he shouldn't have access to. I have blessed your war plate. It will serve you here as it served you before. Now go, defend my palace. Show the dark gods that humanity's champions exist across all realities. Chief snapped a salute, old habit from a chain of command that no longer existed. But the Emperor returned it, that slight gesture carrying the weight of recognition from one soldier to another. He turned and descended the steps 3 at a time. The Custodes were already arming for war. The leader tossed Chief his magnum, then gestured to a weapon rack that materialized from the chamber's wall. Your ammunition will be insufficient. These are Archaeotech bolt pistols. They fire self-propelled explosive rounds. Point and destroy. Chief examined the weapon. Massive by UNSC standards. Clearly designed for warriors larger than baseline humans. But his augmented strength handled the weight easily. The grip adjusted automatically to his hand size. He racked the slide, feeling the satisfying mechanical precision of weapons-grade craftsmanship. Cortana, you catching this? Her avatar flickered to life, eyes wide. John, the Emperor just rewrote parts of your armor's operating system. I'm seeing efficiencies that shouldn't be possible, and he's given us access to the palace's tactical networks. I can see... Oh no. Report. Warp breach forming in the Eternity Gate courtyard. 300 meters from your position. Hostiles manifesting in real space in 30 seconds. The Custodes moved with practiced efficiency, their formation shifting to combat deployment. But they weren't alone. From side corridors, new figures emerged. Women in black armor, faces hidden behind Baroque helms. They carried no weapons Chief could identify, just their presence. And that presence was wrong in a way he couldn't articulate. They created zones of silence around themselves, dead spaces where even thought seemed muted. "Sisters of Silence," the Custodes leader explained. "Pariahs, psychic nulls. They are anathema to the warp. Stay near them if demons target you specifically." Chief nodded, filing the information away. "What's our defensive objective?" "The Eternity Gate must not fall. It is the final barrier between the outer palace and the inner sanctum. If chaos breaches it, they reach the throne itself. Then we hold the gate." A Spartan who understands war. The Custodes leader's expression was hidden behind his helm, but Chief heard approval in his voice. "I am Tribune Valdor Meridius. You will fight beside the 10,000 today. John 1:17. Try not to die. The Emperor seems interested in your survival." They ran. The corridors blurred past, Chief's enhanced physiology keeping pace with warriors who'd been bred for perfection. The sisters moved in eerie silence, their formation creating a mobile dead zone that made Chief's skin crawl. Whatever they were, they registered on his enhanced senses as absences, holes in reality where people should be. They burst into the courtyard of the Eternity Gate. The gate itself was a marvel of militant architecture, 300 feet tall, made from ceramite alloy stronger than anything in UNSC arsenals, covered in prayers and wards that glowed with power. Before it, a courtyard sized for parade grounds stretched 100 meters, enclosed by walls lined with defensive positions. In the center of that courtyard, reality was tearing. Chief had seen the warp breach from inside. Seeing it from outside was somehow worse. Space folded into itself like paper in an invisible fist, colors bleeding through that had no right to exist in real space. The air screamed, stone cracked, and through that wound in the universe, things began to emerge. The creatures from the warp, but more of them. Dozens, hundreds. They spilled into real space like blood from a wound, their forms solidifying as they left the immaterium. Hounds with flesh like flayed muscle. Warriors in archaic armor that wept blood. Flying creatures with wings made from screaming faces. And behind them, something bigger. A champion emerged from the breach, 15 feet of corrupted majesty. Its armor was a fusion of Baroque plate and organic matter, pulsing with the rhythm of a heartbeat that shouldn't exist. In its hands, it carried a sword that was more concept than blade. Hate given edge, fury given form. When it spoke, its voice carried across the courtyard like a physical blow. "Mortals of the false emperor, surrender the warp-touched warrior, and your deaths will be swift." Valdor stepped forward, his guardian spear crackling with power. "Your kind are not permitted here, demon. By the Emperor's will, I cast you back to the void." The champion laughed, the sound echoing wrong in the courtyard. "This realm is already ours. We have permission from—" It stopped, its burning eyes locked onto Chief. You You are the one who walked the blood god's realm untainted. Impossible. The champion raised its sword. You will be broken. You will be claimed. You will... Chief raised the bolt pistol and fired. The round caught the champion in the chest, detonating on impact with a force that staggered even that massive frame. I've heard enough threats for one day, Chief said calmly. Cortana, target priority analysis. Champions first, then the flyers. The hounds will charge. Use them to create choke points. The demons charged. The Custodes met them with golden fury, and Master Chief learned what war meant in the 41st millennium. The first wave hit like a tsunami of hate-made flesh. Chief had fought in hundreds of engagements, from small unit tactics to full-scale planetary warfare. He understood combat at a level most soldiers never reached. But this was something else entirely. This was war as sacrament, violence as prayer. The Custodes didn't just fight, they performed. Valdor moved like water given lethal purpose, his guardian spear describing arcs of golden light through the air. Where the blade touched demon flesh, reality reasserted itself with prejudice. A bloodletter lunged with its hell blade raised, and Valdor simply wasn't there anymore. He was behind it, his spear punching through its spine and out through its chest. The demon dissolved into screaming vapor. Chief fired into the mass, each bolt round finding a target. The explosive projectiles were devastating against demonic flesh. Bodies detonated with satisfying efficiency, their corrupt matter unable to maintain cohesion against physical trauma. His tactical HUD, now enhanced by the Emperor's blessing, painted target priorities with supernatural accuracy. "Flyer! 9 o'clock high!" Cortana called. Chief pivoted, tracking the winged demon as it dove. He led the target by 3 degrees, compensated for the unnatural way it moved through air that seemed to resist its presence, and fired. The bolt caught it mid-dive, the explosion separating wings from body. It crashed into a pack of hounds, its thrashing form disrupting their charge. The Sisters of Silence moved through the chaos like ghosts. They carried no guns, no blades Chief could see, yet demons recoiled from them as if burned. One sister walked calmly through a group of bloodletters, her mere presence causing them to flicker and fade, their connection to the warp severed by proximity to her null aura. "John, those women are incredible," Cortana breathed. "They're creating localized dead zones in the warp. Demons can't maintain cohesion near them. It's like they're the opposite of existence." Chief filed that away, focusing on the immediate threat. A massive hound, easily the size of a warthog, bounded toward him with jaws that dripped molten brass. He emptied the bolt pistol's magazine into its skull, 5 rounds in rapid succession. The creature's head came apart in a shower of unnatural matter, but momentum carried its corpse forward. Chief sidestepped, let it crash past him, and smoothly reloaded. Muscle memory from 1,000 firefights, now applied to weapons from a universe that played by different rules. "Perimeter holding," Valdor's voice cut across the Vox network that Cortana had patched Chief into. "But this is merely the vanguard. The true assault comes." As if summoning it with his words, the warp breach expanded. The tear in reality doubled in size, then tripled. More demons poured through, not the lesser creatures, but warriors in full plate, carrying weapons that wept blood and screamed with bound souls. Behind them came things that hurt to look at directly, their forms too complex for three-dimensional space, existing in states that defied human perception. And then the champions emerged, 3 of them, each a masterwork of corruption, mortal warriors transformed by chaos into engines of destruction. They wore armor that was part battlefield salvage, part demonic symbiote. One carried a massive axe crackling with warp fire. Another bore a sword that phase-shifted between states of matter. The third, the one who'd spoken before, simply radiated menace like heat from a forge. "Custodes!" the lead champion roared. "Your emperor sits rotting on his throne while the galaxy burns. Surrender the stranger, and we will grant you deaths worthy of the old wars." Valdor planted his spear, his voice carrying the absolute certainty of faith. "We are the Emperor's companions. We do not surrender. We do not falter. We do not die," he charged. The other Custodes followed as one, their formation a golden spearhead aimed at the heart of chaos. Chief moved with them, his Spartan training syncing with their tactics instinctively. They fought like he did, no wasted motion, every action serving multiple purposes, violence applied with surgical precision. A bloodletter lunged at Chief's flank. He caught its blade arm, redirected the momentum, and put 3 bolt rounds through its chest at contact distance. The explosion staggered him, but killed the demon. Another attacked immediately. They fought with no sense of self-preservation, only rage. Chief shot it in the knee, dropped it to the ground, and kept moving. Stay mobile, keep firing, create angles of attack that forced enemies into each other's space. Valdor reached the first champion, the one with the axe. Their weapons met with a sound like thunder, power field against warp corruption. The champion was huge, easily outmassing the custodian by 200 pounds of muscle and armor. It didn't matter. Valdor fought with technique refined over millennia, turning the champion's strength against itself, finding gaps in its guard that shouldn't exist. The axe came down with enough force to crack stone. Valdor stepped inside the blow's arc, his spear finding the champion's armpit where plates met. The blade punched through, and golden light erupted from the wound. The champion screamed, not in pain, but in rage that something mortal dared hurt it. Chief engaged the second champion, the one with the phase sword. It moved with unsettling grace, its blade flickering between solid and ethereal. Every swing passed through normal matter like smoke, but Chief's enhanced shields sparked each time it connected, the warp energy registering as real even when the blade didn't. Cortana, pattern analysis. It's maintaining corporeality for 0.03 seconds per swing. That's your window. 0.03 seconds, faster than human reaction time. Good thing Chief wasn't baseline human anymore. He waited, bolt pistol raised. The champion swung, its blade shimmering. At the exact instant Cortana called the corporeal phase, Chief fired. The bolt round caught the sword mid-swing, the explosion shattering the warp construct. The champion staggered, suddenly weaponless. Chief didn't give it time to recover. He closed the distance, grabbed its helm with his armored hand, and emptied his remaining magazine into its face at point-blank range. The champion's head disintegrated, its body collapsing in a heap of twitching corruption. Behind him, a Sister of Silence dispatched 3 bloodletters simply by walking through them, her null aura severing their connection to the warp so completely they ceased to exist. The third champion, the leader, Watch this with eyes that burned with more than mortal intelligence. It wasn't attacking. It was studying. "You fight well, stranger," it said, almost conversationally. "But you don't understand what you are, what you've become." Chief reloaded, acquiring a fresh magazine from a fallen custodian's belt pouch. "Enlighten me." The champion smiled, the expression wrong on its corrupted features. "The artifact that brought you here didn't just transport you. It changed you. Rewrote parts of your existence to make you compatible with this reality. And in doing so, it made you into something the warp cannot touch, cannot corrupt, cannot claim. And that scares you? That makes you valuable beyond measure." The champion raised its sword, and the remaining demons pulled back, forming a circle around the courtyard. Not retreating, surrounding. "My masters want you intact, stranger. They want to study you, learn from you, replicate what you've become." The champion's grin widened. "And if we cannot have you, then we will ensure the false emperor cannot keep you." The warp breach pulsed once. Twice. Then something massive began to push through from the other side. The temperature in the courtyard dropped 20 degrees in 3 seconds. Chief's breath misted inside his helmet. Frost formed on the ancient stone, spreading in fractal patterns that looked almost organic. The demons stopped howling, their attention fixed on the breach with something that resembled anticipation or fear. "Contact emerging from the warp breach," Cortana reported, her voice tight. "Mass readings are... John, this thing is the size of a scarab, maybe bigger." The breach expanded one final time, reality stretching like membrane under pressure. And through it stepped something that made the champions look like children playing at war. The demon prince was a monument to excess and corruption. Easily 30 feet tall, its form blurred the line between flesh and armor, between mortal and divine. Wings spread from its back, not feathered or leathery, but made from what looked like solidified screams. Forearms ending in claws that wept poison, a face that cycled through a dozen different expressions, each more terrible than the last. And around it, the air itself warped, colors bleeding into spectrums that human eyes couldn't properly process. When it spoke, the words bypassed ears entirely, resonating in the bones of everyone present. "I am Kar-Shezad, chosen of the Changer. I have ended worlds. I have broken saints. I have drunk the souls of heroes across 1,000 campaigns." The demon prince's gaze swept across the courtyard, dismissing the custodes, the sisters, until it locked onto Chief. "And you. You are the anomaly, the one who walked Khorne's realm untainted. Let me see what makes you special, little mortal." Chief felt the psychic assault like a physical blow, pressure against his consciousness, trying to pry open his mind and examine what lay inside. He'd felt psychic attacks before when fighting the Didact, but this was different. More invasive, more hungry. Then the pressure vanished. The demon prince recoiled, its expression cycling through confusion, rage, and something that might have been fear. Around Chief, a sphere of stable reality had formed, 10 meters in diameter, just like in the warp. Within that bubble, the air stopped screaming, the colors stopped bleeding, physics reasserted itself with quiet authority. "Impossible. You carry..." "No, that technology should not exist in this epoch. The Forerunners..." Chief's tactical mind caught that hesitation. The demon recognized something. which meant it had knowledge of technologies that predated humanity. Cortana noticed too. "John, it knows about the Forerunners. How is that possible?" No time to answer. Kar-Shazad raised one massive claw, and the air shimmered with building power. Chief recognized the pre-fire indicators of an energy weapon and moved on pure instinct. He dove behind a fallen pillar as reality itself bent, a lance of pure warp energy carving a trench through the courtyard where he'd been standing. The bolt pistol's range was insufficient for a target that size. Chief needed something with more stopping power. "Valdor," Chief called across the Vox, "I need a bigger gun." The Tribune was locked in combat with two champions simultaneously, his spear a blur of golden light. "Armory alcove, northwest wall. Plasma weaponry! Designed for Custodes, but your strength should suffice." Chief sprinted, the Demon Prince tracking his movement with predatory focus. Another reality lance carved through the air, missing him by inches. The heat was intense enough to flash vaporize moisture in the air, leaving a trail of superheated vapor. He reached the alcove, a recessed section in the wall where weapons hung in stasis fields. Plasma weapons, but nothing like UNSC plasma rifles. These were massive Baroque devices that looked more like religious icons than firearms. He grabbed one, and the stasis field released with a hiss of ancient machinery. The weapon's machine spirit, whatever that meant, recognized him through the Emperor's blessing. Targeting data flooded his HUD, integration protocols syncing with his armor's systems. Chief raised the weapon, a plasma incinerator according to the readout, and acquired his target. Kar-Shazad was advancing on a Sister of Silence, her null aura causing the demon's form to flicker and destabilize. But even weakened, the Demon Prince was massive enough to simply crush her through sheer mass. Chief fired. The plasma bolt was superheated matter contained in magnetic fields, traveling at hypersonic velocity. It struck Kar-Shazad in the shoulder, burning through demonic flesh with the fury of a captive star. The Demon Prince screamed, its voice shattering windows across the courtyard. "You dare, you insignificant!" Chief fired again and again. Each shot burned away chunks of the demon's form, forcing it to dedicate energy to regeneration instead of attack. The Sister of Silence retreated behind Custodes' lines, her role in destabilizing the demon complete. "John, you're just making it angry," Cortana warned. "Those wounds are regenerating. You need to hit something critical." "What's critical on a demon?" "I don't actually know. These things don't have biology in any conventional sense. They're warp stuff given form. Maybe if you destabilize that form enough." A massive claw slammed down where Chief had been standing, cratering the stone. He rolled, came up firing, his enhanced reflexes keeping him one step ahead of death. The plasma incinerator's heat sink was already glowing red. These weapons weren't designed for sustained fire. Valdor appeared at Chief's side, having finally dispatched the champions. His armor was scored and dented, golden plates cracked in places. Demon princes cannot be permanently killed in real space, only banished. We must inflict enough damage to sever its connection to the warp. How much damage? In my experience, all of it. Together, they coordinated their assault. Valdor moved with the speed and grace of a master duelist, his guardian spear finding gaps in the demon's defenses, each strike bleeding reality, stabilizing energy into warp-corrupted flesh. Chief provided sustained fire support, the plasma incinerator punching holes through limbs and torso, forcing the demon to constantly regenerate. The other custodes formed a perimeter, holding back the lesser demons that tried to interfere. The Sisters of Silence maintained their null auras, creating zones of stable reality that limited Kar-Shazad's ability to draw power from the warp. It was working, slowly, painfully, but working. The Demon Prince's form was becoming less stable, flickering at the edges like a bad hologram. Enough! Kar-Shazad's wings spread wide, and power gathered around it like a storm. The warp breach pulsed in response, feeding energy directly into the demon's form. Chief felt the temperature drop again, felt reality itself beginning to fray at the edges. "It's going to detonate," Cortana said, her voice urgent. "Psychic overload. It'll take the entire courtyard and everyone in it." Chief looked at Valdor. The Tribune's expression was grim behind his helm. "Can you run?" Chief asked. "Custodes do not flee." "I'm not asking you to flee. I'm asking if you can get your people clear in 10 seconds. Valdor studied Chief for a long moment. Then he nodded sharply. "We can. What are you planning?" Chief checked the plasma incinerator's charge. Critical overload in 15 seconds if he disabled the safeties. That would give him 5 seconds to work with. Just enough. Something I learned fighting the Covenant. Sometimes you can't win the fight. You just have to ruin their victory. He disabled every safety protocol on the plasma incinerator, watching the charge cycle begin its catastrophic buildup. "John." "No," Cortana whispered. "Your shields can't." "Get them out of here, Tribune." Valdor hesitated only a heartbeat. Then he barked orders in a language Chief didn't recognize, and the Custodes began their retreat, dragging wounded with them, the Sisters of Silence maintaining their null fields as they withdrew. Chief walked forward, toward the demon prince that was gathering enough power to shatter the Eternity Gate itself, and smiled. The demon prince saw him coming and laughed. "You think to sacrifice yourself, mortal? How quaint, how utterly predictable. Your kind always chooses the glorious death over the pragmatic surrender." Chief kept walking, the plasma incinerator's charge building to critical levels. The weapon was vibrating in his hands now, the containment fields barely holding back the superheated matter, trying to reach equilibrium with the universe. 10 seconds to overload. The courtyard was nearly clear. He could see the last of the Custodes disappearing through the adamantium blast doors, dragging wounded sisters with them. 8 seconds. "Cortana, if this goes bad, it won't. I've run the calculations. The blast will disrupt the warp breach, and your armor's shields should absorb enough of the initial detonation to keep you mostly intact. Mostly. 73% survival probability. Better odds than we've had before." 6 seconds. Karshazad's wings spread wider, energy crackling between the pinions. The demon prince was pulling so much power from the warp that the breach behind it was beginning to collapse inward, reality and unreality grinding against each other. The psychic pressure was intense enough to make Chief's nose bleed inside his helmet. "Die then, anomaly. Die, knowing your sacrifice changes nothing. The breach remains. My brothers will follow, and Terra will..." 4 seconds. Chief threw the plasma incinerator. Not at the demon prince, at the warp breach itself. The weapon tumbled end over end, its containment fields failing. Superheated plasma already beginning to leak from magnetic bottles that could no longer contain the fury inside. Karshazad's eyes widened, all 6 of them, as it realized what Chief had done. "No, you cannot." 2 seconds. The plasma incinerator crossed the threshold of the breach, passing from real space into the immaterium. For one frozen instant, Chief saw what lay on the other side, a realm of impossible geometry and screaming mathematics, where demons gathered in legions, where the chaos gods themselves watched with burning interest. Then the weapon detonated. In real space, a plasma incinerator's overload would have been devastating, a 15-meter fireball capable of vaporizing battle tanks. In the warp, where the laws of physics were negotiable and energy interacted with consciousness itself, the explosion was catastrophic. The breach screamed. Chief threw himself flat as the shockwave erupted outward. His shields flared white, absorbing electromagnetic radiation across every spectrum simultaneously. The courtyard lit up like a newborn star, shadows burning away in light that had no color because it existed in wavelengths human eyes couldn't perceive. Karshazad was caught at ground zero, its form silhouetted against the explosion. The demon prince tried to retreat back into the warp, but the breach was collapsing, reality and unreality grinding against each other like continental plates. It was trapped between dimensions, being crushed by the fundamental forces of two universes rejecting each other. "I will remember you, anomaly!" the demon roared, its voice already fading, being pulled back into the immaterium. "I will find you again! I will—" The breach snapped shut like a wound closing, and Karshazad was gone. The remaining lesser demons, suddenly cut off from the warp's sustaining energies, began to dissolve. They clawed at the ground, at each other, at nothing, as their borrowed forms came apart. Within seconds, the courtyard was empty except for scorch marks and the lingering smell of ozone and something worse, the psychic residue of corruption, like a taste at the back of the throat that wouldn't go away. Chief lay on the ground, his shields at 4%, every system in his armor screaming warnings. His ears were ringing, his ribs, the ones that had been cracked from the landing, had re-cracked from the shockwave. Blood ran from his nose, pooling in his helmet's internal seal system. "John?" Cortana's voice was distant, staticky. "John, respond. Your vitals are all over the place. John." He forced himself to move, rolling onto his side, then pushing up to hands and knees. Everything hurt, but Spartans didn't stay down. Couldn't afford to. "I'm here." "You insane, brilliant, suicidal—" Cortana's voice broke with something that sounded suspiciously like relief. "Don't ever do that again. No promises." The blast doors ground open, and the Custodes emerged, weapons raised, scanning for threats. Valdor reached Chief first, offering a hand. Chief took it, letting the Tribune pull him to his feet. His legs wobbled but held. "That was—" Valdor paused, searching for words. "Effective, reckless beyond measure, tactically unsound and completely unnecessary given our defensive capabilities. But effective. Did the job. It did." Valdor looked at the space where the breach had been, where now only a circular scorch mark remained. "You collapsed a stable warp rift with nothing but an overloaded plasma weapon and timing. The Ordo Malleus has specialized teams that accomplish the same with ritual preparation and dozens of psychers. You did it alone." Chief said nothing. He was running diagnostics on his armor, checking ammunition counts, assessing readiness for the next engagement, because there was always a next engagement. That's how war worked. "The stranger fights like a Primarch," one of the other Custodes said, his voice carrying respect. "Without fear, without hesitation." "Not without fear," Chief corrected quietly. "Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you alive. You just can't let it control you." Valdor nodded slowly. "Spoken like someone who's seen too many battles. How old are you?" John 117. "Chronologically? 49. Combat time? Lost count years ago." 49. One of the Custodes laughed, the sound bitter. "I have fought for 3 centuries, and this mortal moves like he's seen more war than I have. What kind of universe bred you? One that didn't have time to be gentle." The moment of respect was interrupted by Cortana's urgent voice. "John, I'm picking up massive psychic disturbances. Something's happening in the upper palace. The Emperor is—" The Golden Throne's presence flared, a psychic shockwave that made everyone in the courtyard stagger. Chief felt it like a physical pressure, pushing against his consciousness with overwhelming force, but not threatening, summoning. Valdor's vox crackled with priority traffic. He listened, his perfect features showing rare surprise. Then he turned to Chief. "The Emperor demands your presence. Immediately. Something has happened, something that changes everything." "What?" "The warp. Your actions in destroying the breach, they resonated across the immaterium. The Chaos Gods felt it. And now—" Valdor's voice was grim. "Now they know what you are, what you represent, and they're terrified." Chief checked his bolt pistol, reloaded, mag-locked it to his thigh. "Then we'd better not keep them waiting." As they moved toward the throne room, Cortana whispered in his ear, "John, I've been analyzing the data from the breach collapse. The way the warp reacted to you, the sphere of stable reality you generate. I think I know what the Forerunner artifact did to you. And it made you toxic to chaos, not just resistant, actively harmful. Your presence in the warp is like poison in water, and if the Chaos Gods realize the full implications, they'll do whatever it takes to kill me. Or recruit you. John, we need to be very careful here. We've made enemies that operate on scales we barely understand." Chief allowed himself a slight smile. "Story of my life." The throne room was different this time. The golden light that had bathed everything in radiance now pulsed with urgency, synchronized to a rhythm that Chief realized was matching his own heartbeat. Or perhaps his heart was matching it. Either possibility was disturbing. The Custodes formed an honor guard as Chief approached the steps, but they didn't follow. This audience was private. Even Valdor remained at the base, his helm dipped in a gesture that might have been prayer or respect. Chief climbed alone, each step easier than before. His body was adapting to the psychic pressure, or the Emperor was actively making it easier. Either way, by the time he reached the 50th step, he stood before the Golden Throne without the crushing weight he'd felt earlier. The Emperor's ravaged form seemed somehow more present now, as if Chief's actions had drawn more of his attention into the material world. "You have proven your worth." John 117. You faced a Daemon prince with weapons you'd never used, in a universe you don't understand, and you prevailed. I had help. A flicker of something that might have been approval crossed those ancient features. Humility, rare among warriors of your caliber. But I did not summon you for praise. I summoned you because the warp has revealed something that explains why you are here. Chief felt the Emperor's consciousness reach out, not invasive this time, but offering, showing. His perception expanded, pushing past the throne room, past Terra, past the Imperium itself, into that nightmare realm he'd first arrived in. The warp churned with activity, but now Chief could see it properly, understand what he was looking at. The Imperium wasn't chaos, it was emotion given form. Every feeling, every thought, every prayer from every sapient being in the galaxy fed into this ocean of consciousness. And swimming in that ocean were things that fed on those emotions. The Four. Chief saw them now, not their true forms, which existed beyond mortal comprehension, but representations his mind could process. A throne of skulls, brass and blood, a garden of pestilence, beauty and decay, a palace of excess, pleasure and pain indistinguishable, a library of infinite knowledge, schemes within schemes, the Chaos Gods, and they were focused. All four of them, for perhaps the first time in millennia, were paying attention to the same thing, a disturbance in the warp, a wound that was spreading, growing, consuming. Chief saw it then, a tear between realities, but not the one that had brought him here. This was something else, something older, a fracture in the membrane that separated universes, and through that fracture, something was pushing. Nahazun. The Emperor's voice resonated with dread. The outsider god, the consumer of realities. It exists between dimensions, feeding on entire universes, your universe, mine, countless others. It moves through the spaces between worlds, devouring them one by one. The vision shifted, and Chief saw timelines, universes flickering and dying like candles in a storm. Entire realities consumed, their matter and energy and consciousness absorbed into something vast, beyond comprehension. And the thing doing the consuming Nahar-Zun was barely aware of what it destroyed. They were merely food, fuel for something that existed on a scale that made galaxies look like grains of sand. The Forerunner artifact you discovered was a weapon, not designed by the Forerunners, but by something older, a civilization from a universe that had already been consumed. They created it as a last desperate measure, a device that could make something immune to the outsider's influence. Chief's mind reeled. They used it on me. The artifact recognized you as a warrior, a defender. It activated when Nahar-Zun approached your reality, tearing open the passage that brought you here. But in transit, it rewrote fundamental aspects of your existence. You are no longer entirely matter as this universe understands it. You exist in a state that rejects corruption, rejects chaos, rejects the outsider's influence, which makes me a weapon against it. You are the only weapon that can kill it. In my 10,000 years on this throne, I have battled the chaos gods to a stalemate, but Nahar-Zun, it is beyond even my power. It does not think, it does not scheme, it simply consumes, and it is already beginning to feed on this reality. The vision showed Chief the proof. Regions of space where stars were simply vanishing, not through conventional death, but through erasure. Entire sectors going dark as reality itself was consumed. The Imperium attributed it to warp storms. The Chaos Gods knew better. They were panicking. If this thing destroys your universe, it destroys theirs too, Chief realized. The warp exists because of sentient life. No universe means no warp. They're as threatened as you are. Precisely. For the first time since their birth, the Chaos Gods face extinction, and they cannot stop it. Their power is useless against something that doesn't have a consciousness to corrupt. But you, the Emperor's presence pressed close, examining Chief with terrible intensity. You can enter the space where Nahar-Zun exists. Your altered state will protect you from its consumption. And with the right weapon, the right support, you might be able to destroy it at its core. Chief processed this, his tactical mind already working through the implications. You're asking me to enter another dimension, one that exists between universes, to fight something that eats realities, with no backup, no extraction plan, and no guarantee of success. Yes. And if I refuse? Then every universe, yours, mine, all of them, will be consumed. Everything that has ever existed, everything that ever will exist will be erased as if it never was. Every human who has ever lived, across all realities, will die. Chief was silent for a long moment. Behind him, he felt Cortana's presence through their neural link. She'd been listening to everything, processing alongside him. "What do you think?" he asked her quietly. "I think we left home to protect humanity. We didn't specify which humanity." Her voice was steady, resolved. "And I think if we're the only ones who can stop this, then we don't really have a choice." Chief looked up at the Emperor, at this god corpse who'd fought for 10 millennia to protect his species, who'd sacrificed everything for humanity's survival. He thought about Earth, his Earth, Captain Lasky, the Infinity, Dr. Halsey, every UNSC soldier who'd fought and died believing they were protecting humanity's future. Then he thought about this Earth, Terra, billions of people who'd never heard of the UNSC, who prayed to an emperor they'd never see, who fought in an endless war against horrors from beyond reality, all of them human, all of them worthy of protection. Chief straightened, came to attention. When he spoke, his voice carried the certainty of every oath he'd ever sworn. "I'll do it. Tell me what you need me to do." The Emperor's ravaged features shifted into something that might have been a smile. "Then kneel, Spartan, and let me show you what it means to fight for humanity across all realities." Chief knelt, and the Emperor's consciousness entered him. The Emperor's presence was unlike anything Chief had ever experienced. Not an invasion, an integration. Knowledge flooded his mind in torrents. The history of the Imperium, the nature of the warp, the properties of psychic energy, tactical data from 10,000 years of warfare. His enhanced brain processed it all. Spartan augmentations working overtime to categorize and store information that would have shattered a normal human consciousness. He saw the Emperor's past, a man born in ancient terror, gifted with impossible power, who'd watched humanity rise and fall across millennia. He saw the Unification Wars, the Great Crusade, the creation of 20 demigod sons. He saw betrayal, heresy, and a father's grief as half his sons turned to chaos. And he saw the price. 10,000 years of agony every second of every day, maintaining the Astronomicon that guided ships through the warp, holding back demons at the gates of reality, keeping humanity alive through sheer force of will. When the Emperor's presence withdrew, Chief gasped, the first time he'd shown physical distress since childhood. Cortana was screaming diagnostics, convinced he'd suffered neurological damage, but he was intact. Changed, but intact. "You now carry a fragment of my power," the Emperor said, his voice somehow gentler now. "Enough to protect you in the spaces between realities, enough to harm Nahazun where conventional weapons fail. But the fragment is finite. You will have one chance." Chief stood, feeling the change. There was something more inside him now. Not psychic power exactly, but potential. An ember of golden light that burned quietly in his consciousness, waiting to be unleashed. "What's my tactical objective? Nahazun exists in a pocket dimension between your universe and mine, a space that should not exist, where the laws of both realities collapse into something else. You must enter that space, find the entity's core, and destroy it with the fragment I've given you. Support? My Custodes will accompany you to the breach point. The Sisters of Silence will stabilize the passage. But inside the pocket dimension, you will be alone. No one else can survive what exists there. Extraction plan? There is none. The pocket dimension will collapse when Nahazun dies. You will either return to your universe or remain here. I cannot predict which. So, it was a one-way trip, possibly terminal, possibly a ejection back home. Chief had accepted worse odds before. When do we move? The breach point is opening in 12 hours. Nahazun is accelerating its feeding cycle. Soon it will be too late to stop. The Emperor paused. Rest. Repair your equipment. My Custodes will provide what you need. And John 117. Yes, thank you. For answering a call that was never meant for you. For fighting a war you didn't start. For protecting people you don't know. This is what it means to be human. To stand against the dark, even when hope is lost. Chief saluted one final time, then descended the steps. Valdor was waiting, along with a dozen other custodes. The Tribune's expression was unreadable behind his helm, but Chief heard respect in his voice. The Emperor has shown me what must be done. We will accompany you to the breach point, Spartan. And if you fall, we will ensure your sacrifice is remembered. I don't plan on falling. Neither did Sanguinius. Yet here we stand. 10,000 years later, still fighting his war. Valdor gestured toward the exit. Come, we have preparations to make. The armory was a cathedral to warfare, weapons from across 10 millennia displayed like religious icons. Tech priests, cyborg priests of the machine god, swarmed around Chief's MJOLNIR armor, chanting prayers in binary while performing repairs that blended ritual with engineering. They're treating your armor like it's alive, Cortana observed, watching a tech priest anoint a shield emitter with sacred oils while murmuring benedictions. Maybe it is, here. Different universe, different rules. A tech priest approached. an ancient figure more machine than man, with mechadendrites extending from his back like mechanical tentacles. When he spoke, his voice was synthesized, emotionless. Your warplate is magnificent, archaeotech beyond even our comprehension. The machine spirit within is strong, uncorrupted by scrap code or demonic influence. He extended a mechadendrite, presenting a device that looked like a fusion of technology and religious iconography. This is a teleport Homer. When your mission is complete, activate it. If the Emperor wills it, it will bring you home. Chief took the device, examining it. The technology was fundamentally different from UNSC equipment, but the concept was familiar. A beacon for extraction. He mag-locked it to his armor. Thank you. Thank the Omnissiah. It is his will that technology serves humanity. The tech priest's optical implants focused on Cortana's holographic form. And you, digital construct, you are forbidden by imperial law, yet the Emperor tolerates your existence. Why? Cortana bristled. Because I've saved this man's life more times than you have processors, and I'll keep doing it, law or no law. The tech priest considered this, his mechanical brain processing the statement. Loyalty to humanity, purpose beyond self. Perhaps you are not an abomination, but a gift from the Omnissiah we were too blind to recognize. He bowed slightly, unprecedented for his kind. Serve well, machine spirit. After he left, Cortana was quiet for a moment. Did a cyborg priest just accept me? Looks like it. This universe is weird, John. Agreed. Valdor found Chief in the observation chamber, looking out at Terra. The planet was a fortress world, every continent covered in architecture devoted to warfare, religion, or administration. Billions lived here, most never seeing the sky, working in the endless machinery that kept the Imperium functioning. Overwhelming, isn't it? Valdor said. This is what humanity becomes when pushed to the absolute limit, when every day is a fight for survival. Looks like home, Chief replied quietly. Valdor laughed, but there was sadness in it. Perhaps our universes are not so different, both forged in endless war, both clinging to hope even when reason says to surrender. He placed a hand on Chief's shoulder, a gesture of brotherhood. You fight well, John 117. In another life, you would have made a fine custodian. In another life, I might have been normal. Normal men don't change history. Normal men don't face gods and live. Valdor's grip tightened. Whatever happens in that pocket dimension, know this. You have earned the respect of the 10,000. We do not give that lightly. Chief nodded, accepting the honor for what it was. 12 hours passed quickly. Too quickly. When the Vox crackled with the summons, Chief was ready. His armor repaired, his weapons blessed, his resolve absolute. It was time to kill a god. The breach point was in the deepest part of the Imperial Palace, a chamber that predated the Emperor's reign. Ancient stone walls covered in pre-unification era warnings. Danger. Do not enter. Things that should not be. Someone millennia ago had known about dimensional fractures and tried to seal this place. It hadn't worked. Chief stood before a wall that hurt to look at. Not physically, perceptually. His brain kept trying to interpret what he was seeing and failing. The wall existed and didn't exist simultaneously. Solid stone that rippled like liquid, covered in shadows that moved independently of any light source. The breach point, Valdor announced, his voice carrying the weight of grim finality. This is where the barriers between realities are weakest, where Naharzun has been slowly feeding, tearing holes between dimensions. 10 Custodes formed a perimeter, their guardian spears planted like banner poles. Between them, 20 Sisters of Silence stood in a circle, their null auras creating a zone of stable reality around the breach. Chief could feel the difference. Inside their circle, the wall stopped rippling quite so aggressively. The shadows stilled. Reality reasserted itself, if only temporarily. "The sisters will hold the passage open for as long as they can," Valdor explained, "but their strength is finite. Once you enter, you will have..." He consulted a tech priest's calculations. Approximately 43 minutes before the passage collapses. After that, there will be no way back. Understood. Chief checked his weapons one final time. Bolt pistol loaded, plasma incinerator charged, combat knife sharp. Standard loadout for an impossible mission. "Cortana, you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be to enter a dimension that shouldn't exist to fight something that eats universes." Her avatar appeared on his HUD, trying for bravado, but Chief heard the fear underneath. "John, if this goes wrong..." "It won't. If it does, it's been an honor serving with you. The honor's mine. Now let's go save everything." A tech priest approached, carrying what looked like a spear, but not a normal spear. This weapon radiated power that made Chief's enhanced senses scream warnings. The haft was carved from some kind of psycho-reactive crystal that shifted colors based on the viewer's emotional state. The blade was forged from metal that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space, its edge existing simultaneously in multiple quantum states. "The spear of the Astronomicon," the tech priest intoned. "Forged from fragments of the Emperor's own psychic might. It is the only weapon that can harm an entity like Nahar-Zun. Strike the core, pierce the heart, end the consumption." Chief took the spear. It was surprisingly light, and the moment his gauntleted hand closed around the haft, he felt it bond to him. The weapon recognized the Emperor's fragment inside him, acknowledged his purpose. "How do I find the core?" "You will know," Valdor said simply. "The entity is vast, but all things have a center, a point where they are most vulnerable. Your instincts will guide you." "My instincts say this is insane." "Then you understand the nature of war in the 41st millennium." Valdor clasped Chief's forearm in the warrior's grip. "Fight well, Spartan. Die well, if you must. But take that abomination with you." The Sisters of Silence began their ritual. They didn't speak, couldn't speak, their vocal cords removed in some ancient ceremony. But they moved in perfect synchronization. Their null auras intensified, pressing against the breach point like hands forcing open a sealed door. The wall screamed, not with sound, with wrongness. Chief felt it in his bones, in his augmented organs, in the titanium infrastructure fused to his skeleton. The breach was opening, reality tearing itself apart to reveal the space between spaces. Colors bled through that shouldn't exist. Geometries that made his combat-trained brain rebel against what his eyes were showing him. And through the opening, he felt something vast stirring. Something that noticed the breach and moved toward it with the lazy interest of a predator noticing prey. Nahar-Zun knew he was coming. "Now, Spartan!" Valdor shouted over the reality storm. "Before the entity fully manifests!" Chief didn't hesitate. Hesitation got people killed. He stepped forward, the spear of the Astronomicon held ready, and walked through the tear in reality. The transition was worse than entering the warp. That had been chaotic, violent, wrong. This was nothing, not empty space, the complete absence of existence. Chief felt himself dissolving, his atoms separating, his consciousness fragmenting across dimensions that his brain couldn't process. Then the Emperor's fragment activated. Golden light erupted from Chief's core, wrapping around him like armor, holding his existence together when reality itself tried to tear him apart. The fragment burned through the nothing, creating a bubble of stable causality around him. He landed on something that might have been ground, or might have been the concept of ground given temporary form. Chief's HUD was going haywire, every sensor reading contradictory data simultaneously. Cortana status, static. Then, I'm here, barely. John, this place is impossible. I can't get reliable readings on anything. My processors are trying to understand physics that don't exist. Focus on what we can control. Time. 41 minutes until the passage collapses. Assuming time works the same here, which I'm not confident about. Chief looked around. He stood in a space that defied description. The horizon curved up instead of down. The sky, if it could be called that, was a void so absolute it made deep space look bright by comparison. And scattered throughout this non-place, he saw stars. But they were dying. Not burning out naturally, being consumed. Chief watched as a distant point of light flickered, dimmed, and vanished. Then another, and another. Entire solar systems erased from existence, their matter and energy absorbed into something he couldn't see but could feel all around him. Naharzun, the outsider god, the consumer of realities. It was everywhere and nowhere, a presence so vast that Chief's mind couldn't grasp its full scale, like standing in the ocean and trying to see all the water at once. But somewhere in this impossible space, there was a core, a heart, a vulnerable point where the entity could be killed. Chief started walking, choosing a direction through pure instinct. The Emperor's fragment pulsed inside him, responding to something ahead. A beacon, perhaps, or a challenge. The ground beneath his feet, he was calling it ground for sanity's sake, began to change. What had been relatively stable became fluid, rippling with each step. Shapes emerged from the void sky, descending toward him. They weren't demons. They were worse. Fragments of consumed realities, given temporary form by Naharzun's digestion process. Chief saw things that had once been living beings, aliens from species that no longer existed. Their forms twisted into weapons by an entity that didn't understand the difference between matter and tool. The first one reached him, something with too many limbs and not enough sense. Chief drove the spear of the Astronomicon through its center mass. The weapon flared with golden light, and the creature dissolved into particles that were absorbed back into the void. More came. Dozens, hundreds. And Chief realized this wasn't an attack. It was an immune response. Naharzun had noticed the foreign object in its body and was trying to expel it. Chief gripped the spear tighter and kept moving forward. 38 minutes remaining. The fragments attacked in waves that followed no tactical pattern because they weren't soldiers. They were antibodies. Chief moved through them with Spartan efficiency. The spear of the Astronomicon carving arcs of golden light through the void. Each strike unmade another fragment, returning consumed matter to the nothing it had become. But for everyone he destroyed, 3 more emerged from the infinite dark. "John, you can't fight them all," Cortana warned, her voice strained from processing environmental data that contradicted itself every microsecond. "There's no end to them. This thing has consumed entire universes. It has infinite resources." "Then I don't fight them all. I fight through them." Chief altered his approach, switching from engagement to evasion. Spartans were trained to know when a fight couldn't be won, when survival meant choosing the right enemy to ignore. He sprinted across the impossible terrain, using the fragments' lack of coordination against them, letting them crash into each other while he slipped through gaps in their assault. The Emperor's fragment pulsed stronger now, pulling him in a specific direction. Chief followed that pull, trusting in a 10,000-year-old god's tactical instinct over his own confusion. The landscape, if it could be called that, began to change. What had been void nothing started showing structure. Massive shapes loomed out of the darkness, and Chief realized with growing horror what he was looking at. Planets, whole planets, partially digested, floating in this space between realities. He could see continents stripped of their matter, oceans frozen in impossible states, cities reduced to geometric patterns that his brain interpreted as buildings but couldn't quite process correctly. And everywhere that presence, Nahazun, vast, hungry, mindless. Cortana, what am I looking at? Feeding grounds. Her voice was hollow with dread. These are worlds it pulled into this pocket dimension. It's digesting them slowly, breaking them down into base components. John, some of these readings suggest these planets are from different universes, different times. It's been feeding across dimensions for I can't even calculate how long. A fragment lunged at Chief from above, something that had once been a building, now given teeth and hunger. He sidestepped, drove the spear upward, and felt the satisfying dissolution as the weapon unmade it. But more were coming, always more. 29 minutes remaining. The Emperor's fragment pulsed again, stronger this time. Chief followed it around a half-consumed moon, across a field of crystallized screams. Don't think about what that means, just keep moving. And finally, towards something that made every instinct scream warnings. A structure, not built, grown, or perhaps condensed from the matter Nahazun had consumed. It rose from the nothing ground like a cathedral made from the corpses of dead universes, its architecture shifting and flowing, walls that were solid and transparent simultaneously, towers that extended in directions Chief's eyes couldn't follow. And at its center, he felt it, the core, the heart, the thing that made Nahazun more than just mindless hunger. That's it, Cortana whispered. That's where we need to go. Chief approached cautiously, the spear of the Astronomicon held ready. The fragments that had been pursuing him stopped at the structure's perimeter, as if afraid to get closer. That was never a good sign. When even the mindless antibodies feared something, smart soldiers paid attention. The entrance was an archway that existed in multiple states simultaneously, open, closed, and several conditions that had no names in any language Chief knew. He stepped through anyway, because there was no other choice. Inside was worse. The structure's interior was a maze of consumed realities, each room a pocket of space-time pulled from somewhere else. Chief walked through what had once been someone's home, furniture still arranged around a table set for dinner that would never be eaten. Then through a battlefield frozen mid-explosion, soldiers caught forever in the moment of their deaths. Then through a laboratory where alien scientists worked on equations that made no sense, their forms flickering between existence and memory. These are recordings, Cortana realized. Imprints left in the matter Nahazun consumed. It doesn't just eat mass and energy, it eats history. Every moment these places experienced, stored like data. Chief moved faster, pushing through the ghost memories of dead civilizations. Each room was a tragedy, a story cut short by consumption. Species that had reached for the stars, built empires, created art and science and culture, all of it reduced to imprints in a pocket dimension that served as a multiversal stomach. At the center of the maze, he found it. The core wasn't what he expected, not some massive organ or technological device. It was small, almost delicate, a sphere of crystallized causality, barely 3 feet in diameter, hovering above a pedestal made from the compressed matter of 1 billion consumed worlds. And it was aware. The moment Chief entered the chamber, he felt Nahazun's attention focus on him completely. Not with intelligence. The entity had no mind in any conventional sense, but with recognition. It understood, in its alien way, that something threatened its existence. The chamber sealed behind him. Reality solidified, trapping him inside with the core. And then the entity spoke, not with words, with meaning pressed directly into Chief's consciousness. Images and concepts that bypassed language entirely. You are wrong, not supposed to be, altered thing, immune to consumption. Chief, raised the spear of the Astronomicon. That's the idea. Why? This one feeds. This one exists. This one is nature. Entropy given form. All things end. This one is the ending. Not today. You cannot stop. Have consumed thousands of realities. Will consume yours. Then next. Then next. Forever eating. Forever existing. This is purpose. Chief had faced down covenant prophets who justified genocide with religious rhetoric. He'd listened to the didact's speeches about human unworthiness. He'd heard every justification for mass murder that the galaxy could produce. He was tired of listening to monsters explain why they had to kill. "Here's what I understand about your purpose," Chief said, advancing on the core. "You're hungry. You eat everything. You don't care what gets destroyed because you don't have the capacity to care. You're not evil. You're just endless appetite given form. Yes. You understand." "I understand completely." Chief raised the spear, feeling the Emperor's fragment inside him resonate with the weapon. Golden light began to build, power gathering for one final strike. "And I'm going to stop you anyway because that's my purpose. I protect humanity, all humanity, across all realities, and you're in my way. Cannot be stopped. Am inevitable. Am entropy. Am end of all things." "Nothing's inevitable," Chief said, and thought of Dr. Halsey, who told him Spartans were humanity's next step. He thought of Captain Keyes, who trusted him with impossible missions. He thought of Cortana, who'd chosen to stay with him even when it meant her death. He thought of every Marine who'd followed him into hell, believing he'd bring them home. You just have to be willing to pay the price. Chief drove the spear of the Astronomicon into the core. The moment the spear pierced the core, reality screamed, not metaphorically. Chief heard it, a sound that existed in frequencies beyond human hearing, felt in dimensions beyond normal perception. The core cracked like crystal struck by a hammer, golden light bleeding through the fractures. And Nahar-Zun felt pain. The entity convulsed, its infinite hunger momentarily forgotten in the face of something it had never experienced. Pain, damage, mortality. The pocket dimension shuddered, walls of impossible architecture collapsing as the entity's control wavered. "Wrong, wrong, wrong, cannot be hurt. Am eternal. Am inevitable." "What are you?" "I'm a Spartan," Chief said, driving the spear deeper. The Emperor's fragment inside him flared, channeling 10,000 years of psychic might into the weapon. And Spartans never die. The core shattered. For an instant, less than an instant, a fraction of time so small it shouldn't exist, Chief saw everything. Every universe Nahar-Zun had consumed, every reality it had erased, every civilization that had died screaming in the dark. Billions of species, trillions of individuals, all their stories, their hopes, their struggles, compressed into that single moment of destruction. Then the light consumed everything. Chief was thrown backward by the detonation, his shields flaring to maximum as reality itself exploded outward. The chamber disintegrated around him, walls collapsing into component atoms, the structure coming apart as Nahar-Zun's control vanished entirely. "John!" Cortana's scream cut through the chaos. "The pocket dimension is collapsing. Everything's falling apart. We need to get out now." Chief was already moving, sprinting through dissolving corridors as the maze of consumed memories came apart around him. Rooms flickered in and out of existence. Gravity reversed. Time ran backward and forward simultaneously. He ran through spaces that hadn't existed yet, and areas that had already ceased to be. "The passage!" Cortana guided him through the madness, her processing power pushed to absolute limits as she calculated paths through collapsing reality. 15 degrees left. No, wait, up is left now. Physics is breaking. The fragments were dying too, their borrowed forms coming apart without Nahar-Zun to sustain them. They dissolved into streams of matter that flowed back toward the dying core, returning to the nothing they'd been pulled from, Chief burst out of the structure just as it imploded, the entire edifice collapsing into a singularity that winked out of existence. Behind him, the half-consumed planets were coming apart, their matter dispersing as the pocket dimension released its grip. The pull came from everywhere and nowhere. The collapse wasn't just destroying this place. It was unwinding it, erasing it from existence as if it had never been. Chief felt himself being pulled in multiple directions simultaneously, his body trying to exist in spaces that no longer had definition. The Emperor's fragment burned brighter, creating a bubble of stable causality around him. But it was weakening. The fragment had been meant for one purpose, to kill Nahar Zun. That purpose fulfilled, it was burning itself out. "John, I'm reading temporal distortion," Cortana shouted. "The collapse is creating rifts in space-time. I see passages opening to, oh God, I see your universe, Earth, the infinity. There's a way home." Chief saw it too, a tear in the collapsing dimension, and through it, impossibly, the void of his own universe. He could see stars he recognized, constellations from his Earth. The rift was pulling him toward it, the universe reclaiming matter that belonged to it. But there was another rift. Through the chaos, Chief saw Terra, the Imperial Palace, the Golden Throne, Valdor and his custodes holding the breach point open, the Sisters of Silence straining to maintain the passage. That rift was pulling too, the Warhammer universe trying to claim him. Two realities, two homes, two humanities that needed protecting. The Emperor's fragment pulsed one final time, and Chief understood. The choice was his. The fragment had enough power left for one final act, to stabilize his passage through one rift or the other. But only one. Go home. Return to the UNSC, to Captain Lasky, to the fight against the Covenant and the Prometheans. Return to his Earth, where he belonged. Or stay. Remain in the 41st millennium, where an emperor who'd fought for 10,000 years had recognized something in him. Where warriors like Valdor fought impossible odds every day, where 1 billion worlds needed defenders against horrors from beyond reality. "John?" Cortana's voice was soft now, intimate. "What do we do?" Chief looked at the rift leading home, saw the infinity in the distance, her running lights like a beacon in the dark, saw the Earth he'd sworn to protect. Then he looked at the rift leading to Terra, saw Valdor holding position, refusing to close the passage until the last possible second, saw an Imperium that fought against extinction every single day. He thought about what the Emperor had said. This is what it means to be human, to stand against the dark even when hope is lost. Chief had spent his entire life fighting for humanity, his humanity. But he'd learned something in this universe, fighting beside Custodes and Sisters of Silence, facing down demons and demon princes. Humanity wasn't defined by universe or timeline. It was defined by choice, by the decision to stand up when standing up was all you had left. And this universe, this impossible, grimdark, hopeless universe, needed him more than his own did. The UNSC had other Spartans, had ONI, had a fleet and an army and leaders who could continue the fight. But the Imperium, they were dying, slowly, inexorably, crushed under the weight of 10,000 years of war. And they'd just discovered that warriors could exist who were immune to chaos, who could fight demons without fear of corruption. Chief made his choice. He activated the teleport Homer, letting it lock onto the Terracide rift. The Emperor's fragment flared one last time, stabilizing his passage, ensuring he'd arrive intact instead of scattered across dimensions. "Cortana," he said quietly, "I hope you're okay with this." She was silent for a moment. Then, "You're choosing to stay, aren't you?" "Yes, because they need us more." "Yes." Cortana's avatar smiled, sad but understanding. "Then I guess we're staying. Besides, Someone needs to teach these people about proper AI rights. Chief felt the rift pulling him, the Emperor's power guiding him home. Not to his home, to a new one. As reality collapsed around him, as the pocket dimension erased itself from existence, Master Chief Spartan 117 let himself fall toward terror, toward the Golden Throne, toward a war that would never end, but also toward a purpose that would never fade. The transition was gentle this time, the Emperor's final gift. Chief materialized in the breach chamber, stumbling forward but staying on his feet. The spear of the Astronomicon was gone, consumed in the destruction of Nahazun's core. The Emperor's fragment was spent, barely an ember now, but he was alive. Valdor caught him as his legs gave out, armor systems finally failing from the abuse they'd endured. The Tribune's perfect features showed something Chief had never seen there before. Relief. "You did it," Valdor breathed. "The entity is dead. We felt it die across the warp. Every demon in the galaxy screamed, 'You killed a god, Spartan.'" Chief managed a smile. Just another day. The Imperial Palace's medical facility was more cathedral than hospital. Vaulted ceilings adorned with murals depicting the Emperor's victories, while tech priests chanted litanies over diagnostic machines. Chief lay on a surgical slab built to accommodate Custodes' physiology, barely large enough for his Mjolnir armor, which the tech priests had refused to fully remove despite Cortana's protests. "Your war plate is fused to your biology in ways we cannot safely separate without Imperial medical authorization," the head tech priest had explained, his mechadendrites carefully scanning Chief's vitals. "The machine spirit and your flesh spirit are intertwined. Remarkable symbiosis." Chief's body was healing, Spartan augmentations working overtime to repair damage that would have killed a normal human 3 times over. Cracked ribs mending, neural pathways stabilizing after psychic overload, muscle tissue regenerating from dimensional stress. He'd be combat ready in 48 hours, maybe 36 if he pushed it. Cortana had been quiet since their return, processing the implications of their choice. Finally, she materialized on the holotable beside his slab, her avatar flickering slightly, evidence of the strain she'd endured in the pocket dimension. "John, I've been accessing the Imperium's data networks, learning about this universe, and I need to tell you something." "I'm listening." "We're never going home. That rift we saw, I've run the calculations 1,000 times. It was temporary, created by the pocket dimension's collapse. The chances of another stable passage opening between our universe and this one are," she paused, "effectively 0. We're here permanently." Chief had already known, had felt it the moment he chose Terra over Earth. But hearing Cortana confirm it made it real in a way his gut feelings couldn't. "You regret it?" he asked quietly. "No." Her answer was immediate, certain. "But I want to make sure you don't. You gave up everything, John. Your Earth, the UNSC, any chance of a life outside war. For what? To fight for strangers in a universe that's already dying?" Chief was silent for a long moment, watching tech priests work on his armor, their reverence for the machine both alien and somehow familiar. "I've been a soldier my whole life," he said finally. "Taken from my parents at 6 years old, augmented at 14, fighting by 15. I've never known anything but war, Cortana. Never had a home that wasn't a battlefield or a ship between battles." "I know. But here," Chief gestured at the chamber around them, at the Custodes standing honor guard outside, at the massive cathedral-like structure of the palace visible through windows. "Here, that's not a tragedy. It's a qualification. They don't need me despite being a soldier. They need me because I'm a soldier. And more than that, they need soldiers who can fight chaos without being corrupted. That's something I can give them that no one else can." Cortana's expression softened. you found a place where your trauma is a weapon instead of a wound. Maybe. Or maybe I just found a fight worth finishing. Chief met her holographic eyes. I meant what I said to the Emperor. I serve humanity. His or mine doesn't matter. And this humanity needs me more than mine does. Then I guess we're committed. Cortana straightened, her avatar solidifying with renewed purpose. If we're staying, we need to start planning. This universe operates on different rules, psychic powers, demons, gods that actually exist. We need to learn everything we can about chaos if we're going to fight it effectively. Agreed. What have you learned so far? Enough to be terrified and fascinated in equal measure. Cortana pulled up data files, holographic text and images filling the air around them. The Chaos Gods aren't just powerful, they're fundamental forces of the universe. Every emotion felt by sentient beings feeds them. Every act of violence strengthens Khorne. Every scheme empowers Tzeentch. Every plague feeds Nurgle. Every excess delights Slaanesh. So they can't be killed. Not conventionally, but they can be starved, denied power, and that's where you come in. Cortana highlighted scans from Chief's encounter in the warp. Whatever the Forerunner artifact did to you, it made you anathema to chaos. Your presence disrupts the warp, creates zones of stable reality. You're like a walking Gela field, the technology that protects ships traveling through the immaterium. Chief processed this, tactical implications spinning out, which makes me valuable to the Imperium and a target for chaos. Exactly. The Chaos Gods will throw everything they have at you, not just to kill you, but to corrupt you, study you, replicate what you've become. You're not just another soldier anymore, John. You're a strategic asset. The chamber doors opened, and Valdor entered with 4 other custodes. The Tribune had removed his helm, revealing features that were perfect and ageless. He approached Chief's slab with the measured stride of someone who'd walked these halls for centuries. "The Emperor wishes to speak with you. Can you walk?" Chief sat up, testing his body. Everything protested, but everything worked. "I can walk." "Good, because what he has to say will determine the future of the Imperium." The throne room felt different this time, more present, as if the Emperor's attention wasn't divided across a million psychic battlefields, but focused here, now, on this moment. Chief climbed the 50 steps with Valdor at his side, each footfall echoing in the vast chamber. When he reached the golden throne, the Emperor's ravaged form seemed almost alive, his eyes burning with intensity that hadn't been there before. "You chose to stay. Yes, you could have returned to your universe, to your people, to the life you knew. Yet, you chose this dying Imperium over your own thriving civilization." "I chose where I was needed most." The Emperor's features shifted into something that might have been approval, or satisfaction, or perhaps just recognition of a kindred spirit. "You have proven your worth 3 times over. You walked the warp untainted. You killed a daemon prince. You destroyed an entity that threatened all realities. And now you choose to stand with humanity in its darkest hour." The Emperor's presence intensified, filling the chamber with psychic weight that made even Valdor take a step back. "John, 117. I offer you a choice. Remain as you are, a warrior among warriors, fighting beside my custodes, or accept a greater burden, become something more. Something this Imperium has not seen in 10,000 years." Chief felt the weight of those words, understanding their implication even before the Emperor spoke them. "Become my champion, my Primarch designate, lead my armies against the darkness, accept the blessing I could not give my fallen sons. Become the weapon humanity needs for the wars to come." The offer hung in the air, heavy with consequence. Valdor was staring at Chief with an expression between awe and something that might have been jealousy. The last Primarch, loyal Primarch, had died 10,000 years ago. The Emperor hadn't made another since. Until now. Chief thought about what accepting would mean. No more anonymity. No more being just another soldier. He'd become a symbol, a leader, an icon for billions to rally behind. Everything he'd never wanted, but also everything this dying Imperium needed. Chief knelt before the golden throne, his damaged armor scraping against ancient stone. I accept. The Emperor's blessing was not gentle. Chief felt it enter him, not the fragment from before, but something far greater. Power that had created 20 demigods millennia ago, now channeled into a warrior from another universe. His Spartan augmentations, already beyond human limits, were pushed further, enhanced, perfected. His bones, already reinforced with titanium, became denser still, molecular restructuring that made them virtually unbreakable. His muscles, already capable of lifting 3 times his body weight, gained strength that bordered on supernatural. His reflexes, already faster than human perception, accelerated to speeds that would let him match even the quickest Astartes. But more than physical changes, Chief felt something else, a connection, not psychic power. He remained a blank to the warp, immune to its corruption, but presence, authority that existed on a level beyond normal command, the ability to inspire, to lead, to make others believe victory was possible even when facing annihilation. The blessing of a Primarch. When it was over, Chief stood. The pain from his injuries was gone, burned away by the Emperor's power. His armor, damaged and failing moments before, had repaired itself, the machine's spirit responding to its wearer's transformation. Rise, John 117, Primarch Designate, the Warp-born. Chief rose, feeling the weight of his new title settle across his shoulders like armor. You will need a legion, warriors who can fight as you do, without fear of corruption. I cannot create space marines from your genetic template. Your alterations are too unique, too bound to technologies I do not fully understand. But there are other ways. The Emperor's consciousness pressed outward, and Chief saw a vision, Spartans. Not from his universe, but born here. Children selected for their genetic potential, augmented with a fusion of UNSC and Imperium technology, trained in both tactics and faith. A new breed of warrior, immune to chaos by design. The Adeptus Mechanicus will study your armor, your augmentations. They will attempt to recreate what makes you immune. It will take decades, perhaps centuries, but in time you will have your legion. Until then... Valdor stepped forward, removing something from his armor. A pendant bearing the Emperor's Aquila, wings spread in defiance. The Custodes will serve with you, the Tribune said, his voice carrying absolute certainty. We have guarded the Emperor for 10 millennia, but he has shown us a new purpose, to fight alongside his newest son, to learn from you, to become more than guardians. Chief took the pendant, examining the craftsmanship. It was ancient, worn smooth by centuries of handling. This belonged to Constantine Valdor, the Tribune explained, the first Captain General of the Adeptus Custodes. He vanished into the webway centuries ago, seeking to redeem himself for failures during the heresy. I carry his name in his honor, and now I offer you his symbol. Wear it. Lead us. Show us how to fight without corruption. Chief clasped the pendant around his neck, the aquila settling against his chest plate. I'm not a leader, he said quietly. I'm a soldier. I follow orders. Then follow this one, Valdor replied. Lead. The Imperium faces its darkest hour, the Emperor's voice resonated through the chamber. The Great Rift has torn the galaxy in half. Chaos runs rampant. Xenos press from all sides, and now that Naharzun is dead, the Chaos Gods will turn their full attention to this reality. They will seek to claim what they could not consume. Then we fight them. You will do more than fight. You will inspire. Across 1,000,000 worlds, humanity suffers beneath endless war. They need hope. They need to see that victory is possible. You will be that hope. My champion in the Imperium, my sword against the darkness. Chief felt the weight of that responsibility. Billions of lives depending on him. An empire spanning the galaxy looking to him for salvation. It should have been crushing, should have been impossible, but he'd carried impossible burdens before. Go now, rest, recover, learn this universe's ways, and when you are ready, I will send you where you are needed most, where the darkness gathers, where my enemies mass for their final assault. The Emperor's presence began to withdraw, his attention returning to the countless psychic battles he fought every second. Welcome home, my son. The Emperor protects. The Emperor protects, Chief repeated, the words feeling right in a way they shouldn't. He descended the steps, Valdor falling into step beside him. As they left the throne room, Cortana spoke quietly in his ear. So, Primarch, that's a thing now. Apparently. How do you feel about it? Chief considered the question carefully. Ask me after the first battle. The observation deck overlooked Terra's sprawl, billions of lights marking billions of lives. Chief stood alone. Valdor had given him space, understanding that warriors sometimes needed solitude to process change. You know what's funny? Cortana said, her avatar appearing beside him. We spent years fighting the Covenant, who believed humans couldn't be gods or chosen ones. And now here you are, literally chosen by a god to be his son. The Emperor's not a god. He's a man who became something more because humanity needed him to. That's literally what gods are in this universe. Chief smiled slightly. Fair point. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Terra's eternal twilight. Somewhere out there, in the galaxy beyond, threats were gathering. Chaos warbands, Xenos invasions, traitor legions. All the horrors the 41st millennium could produce. And standing against them, a Spartan who'd chosen to stay, who'd accepted a burden he never asked for because people needed protecting. John? Cortana's voice was softer now. Thank you. For what? For not doing this alone. For taking me with you. Even when it meant giving up everything. You're part of everything I gave up. Couldn't leave you behind. Still, thank you. Chief placed a hand on the window, feeling the cold of the armored glass. Beyond it, the stars waited, a galaxy in flames, a species clinging to survival, an emperor who'd fought for 10,000 years, finally given a weapon that chaos couldn't corrupt. Somewhere in the warp, the chaos gods were watching, plotting, planning their revenge against the anomaly that had killed their multiversal threat. Let them plan, let them scheme. Spartans didn't lose. Behind Chief, the door opened. Valdor's voice. The War Council gathers. They wish to meet the Emperor's new champion. Chief turned from the window, adjusting his helmet, checking weapons he knew were ready. Then let's not keep them waiting. As he walked toward his new purpose, toward a war that would never end, Master Chief Spartan 117, now Primarch Designate John 117 the Warpborn, allowed himself one final thought about the universe he'd left behind. I'm sorry, but where I'm going, where I'm needed, this is where I belong. The doors closed behind him, and the 41st millennium gained its newest defender. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is only war. This truth has echoed across 10,000 years, carved into the bones of a dying Imperium. But on one day, in one moment, something changed. A warrior from another reality, a Spartan who'd already died once for humanity, chose to stand against the dark. Master Chief didn't come to this universe seeking glory. He didn't ask to become a Primarch. to bear titles and responsibilities that would crush lesser men. He simply saw people who needed protecting and made the only choice a soldier like him could make. In the days that followed, word spread across Terra, then across the system, then, through astropathic relay, across the Imperium itself. The Emperor had spoken. The Emperor had chosen. After 10 millennia of silence, after 10,000 years without new Primarchs, the Master of Mankind had created another sun. The ecclesiarchy would debate the theological implications for centuries. The Inquisition would investigate, searching for corruption that didn't exist. The Adeptus Mechanicus would study Chief's armor and augmentations, attempting to replicate what the Forerunners and the Emperor had created together. But on the front lines, where guardsmen held impossible positions against impossible odds, where Astartes died by the thousands fighting enemies that should not exist, the story took on a different meaning. They whispered of a warrior who'd walked the warp and emerged untainted, who'd killed a demon prince in single combat, who'd destroyed a god that fed on universes, who'd chosen to stay and fight beside them when he could have gone home. Hope is a rare commodity in the 41st millennium. But in those whispers, in those stories told around campfires on 1,000 war-torn worlds, hope began to kindle. The Chaos Gods watched from the warp and knew fear. They had underestimated this anomaly, this Spartan from another reality. They had thought him a curiosity, perhaps a weapon to be claimed or destroyed. Now they understood the truth. He was a threat to their very existence, a symbol of what humanity could be when freed from their corruption. The first battles came quickly, chaos warbands seeking to kill the Emperor's new champion before he could gather strength. Demon incursions targeting worlds Chief defended. Traitor legions emerging from the Eye of Terror to test this warp-born Primarch. Chief met them all with the same calm professionalism he'd brought to every battle. No dramatic speeches, no grand declarations, just precise application of violence, surgical elimination of threats, and an unshakable determination to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Valdor fought beside him, the ancient tribune learning to adapt millennia-old tactics to Chief's more pragmatic approach. The Custodes, who had stood guard for 10,000 years, finally returned to the galaxy as active warriors. And everywhere they went, they left victory in their wake. But this is not a story about victory, not entirely. Because in the 41st millennium, victory is always temporary, always purchased with blood. Chief learned this truth quickly, watching worlds burn despite his best efforts, seeing soldiers die under his command, facing enemies that couldn't be reasoned with or deterred. He learned what the Emperor had known for 10 millennia, that leading humanity meant making impossible choices, that sometimes you saved one world by abandoning another, that the mathematics of war in this universe were brutal, unforgiving, and absolutely necessary. Yet through it all, Chief never wavered, never questioned his choice to stay, because every world he saved was a world that might have fallen. Every soldier who lived because of his tactics was a victory against the dark. Every demon banished, every cultist destroyed, every chaos champion killed, all of it mattered. The Emperor watched from the Golden Throne and knew he had chosen well. This warrior from another universe understood what so many of his original Primarchs had never grasped. That power existed to serve, not to rule. That leadership was a burden, not a reward. That the greatest victory was simply surviving one more day to fight again tomorrow. Years will pass. Decades. Perhaps centuries. The Adeptus Mechanicus will eventually succeed in replicating Chief's immunity to chaos, and a new legion will rise. Warriors forged in the image of a Spartan, incorruptible defenders for an Imperium that desperately needs them. But that future is not yet written. For now, there is only this. A soldier from another universe, standing on the walls of the Imperium, holding the line against darkness. A man who gave up everything, his home, his people, any chance at peace, because humanity needed him more than he needed rest. Master Chief came to Warhammer 40,000 not as a conqueror or a savior, but as what he'd always been: a protector, a shield for those who had no other defense, a weapon pointed at the throat of humanity's enemies. And in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, where there is only war, sometimes that's exactly what hope looks like. One soldier standing in the dark, refusing to fall. The Emperor protects. But sometimes the Emperor sends a Spartan. The Emperor protects. More stories await.